So as with most of these experiments that I run, I really don't know how things are going to turn out because I'm going by an assumption, and I'm assuming that since the wood on this block valve is very old, okay, and because it was all covered with shellac when it was new, that over the years, as the shellac cracks, that would allow air to escape through the wood, or vacuums would, air could get in the wood, vacuum, anyhow, you know what I mean. So anyhow, so I've taken some Phenoseal and I've put the Phenoseal on here and I'm going to blow into this. And you can see pretty readily that air is leaking out through the wood, and it's not even along the seam. You know, you would think that, okay, you know, it might leak out along the seam, but if you notice it was leaking right along here where the wood is the thinnest, and there's no seam there. The seam is here and up here. Let's see if I can get them. Look at this a little more carefully. The seam is here and here. It's where the wood is very thin right here that it's leaking. I'll put a little more on. And we'll do it again. You can see that pretty clearly that air is leaking through the wood. Now this side hasn't been sanded yet. I sanded the other side just to make it real easy for the air to get out, if it was going to get out through the wood, even though the wood is sealed with the shellac. And of course the shellac should seep down into the wood, so it actually shouldn't leak even if you just take off the outside layer, because the shellac, you know, gets down into the pore of the wood. So we'll try it on the other side that hasn't been sanded yet. And you can see very clearly that the air is leaking out through the wood. In this case, it's actually leaking out a little bit along the seam also, but this is the area right here where the majority of the leakage is, which of course is where the wood is the thinnest. Right? It would be the thinnest right along this edge right here. That's where it would be the thinnest. So you multiply that leakage times 80, you know, and you've got a pretty good amount of leakage. So seal the blocks. Now, just out of curiosity, I'll just go ahead and do the back. I'll go ahead and do the back side here too, or the front of the valve, depending on whether you call it the front or the back. I don't know what you'd call it. But the thing is, along the sides, that's end grain. So this side of the valve is not end grain. So I am assuming that there's going to be less leakage on the front. And you can see that except for a tiny little bit of leakage down here, there is a tiny bit. But compared to this leakage, actually the sealer is starting actually to dry on the side that I did it first. So let's just go ahead and check that with some fresh. And you can see that this side that I sealed first, this has significantly less leakage than the side that's still wet. This is the side that I sealed first, and you can see that the amount of leakage on this side over here is significantly less after just the amount of time that it's taken to shoot this video. So you can see that it's sealing the outside of these valves is definitely going to reduce the amount of leakage that you get. I'm just going over the whole thing right now, front, back, sides, just to go ahead and do one more final test here. You can see that the leakage is already reduced on this side. The leakage on this side, except for that one spot right there, is almost gone. And there's virtually no leakage on the front now. So, seal the blocks. Get rid of leakage.